So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our first ever Trackcast. We're here today to talk about education, employment, and perhaps looking at things from a different perspective. To introduce myself, my name's Tom Cliff from Track NN Limited. We're a social enterprise which is supporting autistic people to access employment. And I'm delighted today to be welcoming guests from throughout Northamptonshire to hear about their own experiences, perhaps more from the education world or perhaps more from the employment world this week, and look at ways in which we've worked together in the past, but also to look at challenges which we're facing in different ways. So hopefully we've got guests from a variety of different industries. And this is the first of 3 Trackcasts that we're going to be showing over the next few weeks. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me. We'll give all the details at the end. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite our first guest into the broadcast area. So this is a warm welcome to Chris. Chris, if you'd just like to say hello to everyone and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Of course. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me on here, Tom. My name's Chris. I'm the sales director at ACS Recruitment. Similar to Tom, we are based in Northampton, covering recruitment across industrial and commercial sectors. Our main functions are industrial and commercial recruitment, and we have just over the last 6 months been reaching into the Milton Keynes market, but predominantly our background over the last 9 and a bit years has been in Northamptonshire.
And Chris, my background, as you know, I was a teacher for 10 years. Well, then set up a social enterprise. So I'm relatively new to the business world. And when people say recruitment agencies, I know people have different perceptions. But one of the things that really attracted me to working with ACS Recruitment was your kind of commitment to looking at different diverse work streams. Obviously, we're working together to support autistic people into work. But I know you're keen to look at different talent pools and how you can support them.
Absolutely. I think it's vital, especially obviously at the moment we find ourselves in a bit of a strange situation where we've had the COVID pandemic hit the world. So recruitment in itself is a very different landscape at the minute. But pre that, I think some of the work we've done previously and the stats that we've been sharing with people on the various different seminars we've held and training workshops is that there's a hell of a lot of autistic or those that are diagnosed as autistic across the UK, and there certainly isn't enough businesses that are utilising that skill. And the reason we got involved with Track and the work that they do is that personally I have a daughter that over the last 3 years has been doing various different assessments and having extra help from school because we believe she is autistic. The results have now come back that they believe that she isn't, but she doesn't show enough traits to be considered on the ASD spectrum. So that's been frustrating. But equally, what we are thankful of is that the school that she's in now has been supporting her regardless of any assessment. So the reason we got involved, like I was saying, is that we wanted to help bridge the gap from leaving school to then entering into employment. And so far, we've had some really good successes of working together and helping some of the guys that you work with not only find employment, but find businesses out of our client base and the surrounding area that are happy to take that leap and make those necessary changes. And I'm sure you'll come on to this in a second, Tom, that there really isn't that much that businesses need to do. And it's been really great to see that local companies have embraced that. And the work that you're doing especially is becoming more aware across the county. So well done to you and your team.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about adjustments, and I guess that's when we're talking whether it's mainstream education, SEN education, that gap from university into employment. There is sometimes a gap in skills and talents, but when we've looked and talked to employers about adjustments, there is a nervousness. Let's be clear. It's a new pool of talented individuals. But like you say, we've had examples now of working with companies where those adjustments really are small. I mean, with Jonathan, for example, we're talking arriving a little bit earlier and having the same work desk. And that's something which adds value, and that's got to be key for yourselves as well, because obviously your reputation is based on supplying high quality individuals and developing relationships with businesses. So from your point of view, it's really added value to yourselves as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Jonathan. I think he's been a real showcase for the work that we've done together. Is that he's gone into an industrial environment coming from a care sector. He's gone into a warehouse. He's quickly become and established himself as a high performing individual. And I think if that's the message that comes out of the work that we've been doing together, then hopefully more companies will take note. And the company he's working for, and we're happy sharing this, but Pets at Home were the first business that we worked with and embraced it. And I know that they've continued to explore it, as has some of their neighbours around where they're based. So, yeah, I think if there's something to be learned from any of this conversation, is that taking the risk has certainly proven valuable to us, the businesses that people work for, and I definitely. Whereas I say taking a risk, it has actually proven not to be a risk, and it's proven a real benefit. So it's great.
And just a final question before we invite on our next guest. Broadening it out a little bit to individuals joining your agency at maybe 18, having left school. What challenges do you think that there are for individuals to match their skills up to what employers want? Because there's a lot of talk about this gap and people not being prepared. But is that something you can see from a recruitment agency that obviously deals with a variety of different sectors?
Yeah, I think the skill gap, there is a skill gap. That it's an obvious skill gap. When the levels of employment are low, like they have been in the past, there are industries out there that are going to struggle. But equally, there are so many different areas of industry that are more than happy to take on, junior guys and invest that initial time. And I think the work that the guys that we have been working with, that is all it really is taking an extra little bit of time in the very early stages to just make sure that the familiarities that they expect are there. They're made comfortable in their work arena. Excuse me. Let's go back to Jonathan again. You touched on the fact he was given the one work bench that he knew was his. He had to go there every day. He did his work. And if you can make those subtle adjustments where that person, that's where he needs to be, then why not go for it? But in terms of skill shortages, I think there's a lot more emphasis now on training and development of individuals, which is another perfect reason why the guys that you deal with are even more suited to businesses in the area.
Chris, huge thanks for your time. We will be inviting you back on at the end, but we'll say goodbye just for now. So great to hear from Chris from ACS Recruitment, and I'd now like to welcome Ben. So Ben, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business.
Hello, Tom. My name is Ben Thomas. The company is All Things Management Limited. We're probably best known in Northamptonshire and Milton Keynes for our business publication, which is called All Things Business, and that's delivered by the Royal Mail to business owners in NN and MK with a turnover of £250,000 plus. And that's probably a good summary, really.
So Ben, I've obviously known you a long time, and your kind of impact and engagement with local businesses is huge, but you've also got a passion for education and linking the two together, and you've recently established the Schools Business Alliance. Could you tell us a little bit about where that's at the moment and where you'd like to see that go in the future?
Yeah, we class ourselves, or we not class, but we pride ourselves on being first for business news, and I want us to become a hub for the local business community. And the reason for that is because we concentrate on positive news. Northamptonshire has got a wonderful array of SME businesses across a diverse range of sectors. Long gone are the days where Northamptonshire is only going to be famous for high performance engineering and shoes. Those two are huge sectors for which we are very rightly famous for, but we've got some fantastic sectors alongside that. And Milton Keynes is a city that is, I'll describe it as a mini London. When I go over to Milton Keynes, we've got an office on Midsummer Boulevard, and I get a similar feeling to what I do when I come off the train, when I go down to Euston or St Pancras. And again, a very diverse range of businesses. But what the business community needs is education. And having fallen across education a couple of years ago, which is obviously where we sort of got closer together, I quickly learned that education needs business as well. So that was the reason why, that was our why, if you like, to quote Simon Sinek, as to why we got involved with the Northamptonshire Business Awards, Northamptonshire Education Awards. And that then kicked off the NSBA, which is the Northamptonshire Schools and Business Alliance, which basically bridges the gap between the local education sector and the local business community. And that isn't that isn't to step on anybody other's toes, because I know there are other organisations that strive to do the same thing. But if I'm being honest, from a business owner's perspective, I wasn't necessarily aware of many other organisations that do that. And we've already seen, and you've seen this because you've been at all of the meetings, that already there's been a direct positive results, some of which has involved business owners and directors becoming governors of local schools, which many local schools are desperate for.
Absolutely, and those sort of practical steps and how people work together are key. Like you know, I've been on the education side of things. I taught for 10 years. I got told I wasn't preparing people for the world of work. I've come out of that and gone to the other side of the fence in a way. But actually, I guess what we're all striving to show is that they're one and the same thing. And education doesn't end and employment starts. It's one continuous process, because actually as well, and I emphasize this with Chris, because we don't do it because it's a nice thing to do. We do it because it adds value to absolutely everybody involved in that whole process. Yeah.
And you know, the young people, young adults of today are some of them are going to be managing directors of tomorrow. You know, we're a young business. We were 5 years old early this month, and there's 11 of us. 4 of them are under the age of 22. You know, so when we first started, they were all in year 10 or year 11. When you look at it like that, you think, oh wow, you know, look how far we've come on our journey. And I'm sure it'll be the same for Chris in his business. He employs a lot more people than what we do, but there'll be some of those people that were still in education when ACS recruitment started, and then of course it's the next. Where's the next crop of young business leaders coming from? And we're big advocates of the apprenticeship program. We've got a very good relationship with Starting Off that have found and recruited and trained in 5 years. I think they've trained 6 apprentices for us, 4 of which have remained with us and have continued their career and obviously been promoted, etc. And I think it's just a great way for a business to grow and also to give back. I think every business has got that moral obligation where they need to give back to their local community in whatever way, and I think education is a great way of doing that.
And you know, we're filming this in May, June 2020. For future reference, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I don't remember as a teacher or as a student ever being taught about this particular thing, because we didn't know it was going to happen. But actually, I think when I look back at my kind of schooling, the skills I'm having to show as a business owner at the moment of resilience and, you know, teamwork and problem solving, they're the kind of key things. And actually that focusing on the skills is going to be even more key as we move forward.
Yeah, I think I've made it perfectly clear. I've been through every emotion going over this last 10 weeks. As a father, as a husband, as a business owner, as a friend, as a supplier, I'm quite lucky because I've got a close circle of friends that I can pick up the phone to. It's definitely been testing times, but I think it's also been amazingly testing for the education sector. You know, some of these teachers are still continually supporting their pupils, even remotely. Some are being very entrepreneurial because they're thinking outside the box and they're doing things differently by embracing Microsoft Teams or Google Hangout, Zoom, etc. We've actually, my daughter's got she's not colorblind, but she has to have a special filter on her glasses, and they broke. Shyman's unfortunately was shut, so we let the teacher know, and she actually delivered a ream of special paper for her to do her homework on. That teacher went above and beyond, and I'm not saying that every teacher would do that, but in a way I can see how the one good thing, I think there will be a couple of good things that will come out of this global pandemic, and that is the kind and courteous actions that people have taken, because we're all in this storm together. We're all in the trenches together. It's not like any other economic downturn where it doesn't perhaps affect education, but it might affect certain other sectors. So I think that that's something that we can definitely share with the education sector. And I think if the other thing I would add to that, Tom, is, as you know, RS Components are big advocates for education and inspiring and finding the next generation of engineers. They hold a STEM Fest every year, and I went to it last year. It was a beautiful, glorious day. They had something like 1,000 pupils visit RS House over 3 days, and I went along, and they had lots of activities going along across the building. But I saw there was a group of students that had come off like their coach, and it was like their reaction to seeing a workplace. And honestly, it was like, wow, look, there's privacy glass. Oh, wow, look, there's a vending machine. And just seeing that, it was almost like the penny dropped for me, because I'm fortunate. I've got the best job in the world, because I get to go out and see different businesses and understand what their why is and what they do. But actually seeing a child's or children's reaction as to what it's like in the world of work was a real eye-opener for me. And unfortunately, Futures Day, which was an initiative that came out of the NSBA, we had 40 schools and businesses that were going to 40 schools and businesses that were coming together, where we were going to go in to the school, or allow the school to come into the business premises, and actually, you know, let the pupils come in and experience what it's like within that setting. That's obviously had to be postponed because of COVID, but it will hopefully take place later this year, if not certainly in 2021. And that's another classic example of how a local business can give back. It doesn't matter if you're in Northampton, Milton Keynes, Portsmouth, or Southampton. You know, it's the simple things, and that's definitely one thing that we need to take out of this global pandemic. It's the simple things in life that we perhaps need to appreciate a lot more than what we did before.
Absolutely, Ben, and thank you for joining us. We're going to say goodbye to you now for a little while, and then we'll invite you back for the conversation at the end. So huge thank you to Ben. And like we say, whilst these events are perhaps on pause at the moment, I know everyone's working tirelessly behind the scenes to look at different ways of making them happen. And actually, we're going to be speaking to Laura in episode 3 to find out more about those sorts of events. So next up, I'd like to invite Phil into the studio. So Phil, if you could just let everybody know who you are and a little bit about your business.
Sure. Thanks, Tom, for having me. So yeah, my name is Phil Spokes. I run a small online learning business in Northampton called Spokes Education. We specialise in creating everything to do with online learning and all the kind of the creative assets around that as well. So
Phil, we've obviously known each other a little while through various different football and exploits, but our kind of paths have crossed to look at how we can create opportunities for people. And obviously your business has grown very, very quickly, and you've had to look at different sort of recruitment streams, and also making sure that within your team you've got people with a range of talents. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you've gone about growing your team?
Yeah, so back in sort of September time last year, so 2019, we won a big contract that meant we needed to scale up really quickly. So I needed to bring in lots of different people. We were a team of 3 at the time, and we were looking to bring in e-learning developers. We're looking to bring in graphic designers, and we're looking to bring in support people as well. So, you know, more kind of learning technologists, we call them, but they sort of do lots of different things. And we basically had a big recruitment, you know, for us, you know, scaling up from 3 to now we've got 8 full-time people, as well as 4 contractors who've been working with us regularly as well. And we wanted to scale up, say, quickly, but also make sure we're bringing in the right people. So we went down the usual routes of recruiting, went through the networks, but also one of the things we did was to look at internships as well. And there was a scheme with the University of Northampton where they had basically a subsidised scheme for people who are still at university or just come out of university, and they've had a couple of those schemes running, and we've basically utilised that, and we've now sort of had through various schemes we've taken on 4 interns at different points over the last 6 months or so. And that, it's been really, really successful as well. So, helping us to kind of scale up, bringing in people, but also, bringing in people at a low cost to us, but making sure that those people get get some experience and work experience and opportunity as well to show what they can do.
And that sort of internship pathway is really interesting to me, because obviously track is supporting autistic people, and one of the barriers we found to employment is nothing to do with skills in the job. It's some of the more day in, day out, perhaps getting to the office, what's it going to be like, how do I interact with people in there. Now, whilst we bring the unwritten rules into a written sphere so we can actually let people know that, actually for even for graduates coming out of, they've obviously got academic skills, but that internship actually gives them the opportunity to grow alongside the business. And I think that's something that we can take forward a lot, that it doesn't have to be that traditional style of learning, that actually getting into your workplace and they can become almost, tailored to your business, because they've got generic skills and you're then really tailoring it to help you meet your aims and objectives.
Yeah, exactly that. And like I said, you've got these, so many talented people out there. Like I said, we've got, of the 4 people we've had, 3 of them have been graphic designers, and that's it's a hard skill. It's a good technical skill, and you want people who have got that skills, and it's a good talent pool to go and get it from, because actually the kids coming through today now are working with the softwares that, they've grown up with that software, the software that's, I can't even look at without getting a headache, and I can't touch it. So having those people who are available with the hard skills, but actually just a little bit raw in terms of their work experience and understanding how business works is perfect for us, because, we can, like you say, we can kind of shape them, and we can kind of give them the opportunity to capitalize on their skills and their kind of creative eyes and their technical skills. But also, like I said, they're not kind of embedded in a way, they haven't picked up bad habits from, not necessarily bad habits, but habits from organizations that perhaps don't fit in with the way that we work. So, yeah, it certainly works well for us, and has done now. Say out of the 4 interns, they've all been successful. So much so that one of those interns we took on permanently after the internship, and 2 of the other interns we continue to work with on a more casual sort of freelance basis as well.
Yeah, and again, those different styles of working, we've seen over the last kind of 10 to 12 weeks, we're having to come up with different styles of working and people working from home. And our paths crossed on a professional level with one of the individuals we were working with, who was finding barriers to getting into employment, but was hugely talented and just needed a little bit of support, and also was open to guidance for people working around them as well. Because actually one of the things that we're keen to do is support people to learn. We all make mistakes, we'll all get things wrong, as you'll probably see from the outtakes reel of this at the end of it. But actually, learning is lifelong, and you as an employer are seeing the benefits of perhaps looking at a different perspective, trying people who perhaps at first light you might think, well, hang on, what changes do I need to make? But actually the changes you've had to make haven't really been very big at all.
No, so yeah, we've took on a girl, say graphic designer, and she's, like you said, she really struggled to find work, which was completely baffling to me, because you look at her portfolio, you look at her skills, she's incredible. And and when I spoke to her, it was clear that she was so desperate to work and be given an opportunity that I felt really compelled to kind of find this opportunity. And then what happened essentially was she qualified for one of these internships, which again was ideal for us, because what that allowed is to take on and give someone an opportunity on a more kind of informal, kind of casual basis, without the kind of pressure of sort of saying, look, we expect this from you, and it allows us to kind of embed you in slowly. We don't have to go through kind of formal interviews. We don't have to go through those processes that that she might have found difficult. And what that essentially did was kind of open the door. We then identified very, very quickly, within a week or so of her working on as an internship, that she's beyond what we would have ever expected and hoped for, and therefore that led to us offering a full-time position. And it was a slightly different route in the sense that with her autism, she struggled with interviews, and that's why I think she struggled to get jobs. It certainly wasn't anything to do with her applications, because actually, when you look at her application, look at her CV and her portfolios, it say, I don't understand how she hasn't got a job, and their losses are gained very much. But just making those few kind of adjustments and thinking about the kind of recruitment process in a different way, without sort of saying, look, I want you to go through this interview process, I want you to kind of do this, that, and the other. It doesn't need to be that, and if we'd gone through that process and sort of gone down a formal route, she probably wouldn't have got the job, based on, she probably wouldn't have performed as well in the interview as, we know as reflective as to her ability in the workplace. And it would have missed out on that opportunity. So I think that it's definitely different ways of thinking about it, and not sort of pigeonholing and having that kind of strictness on processes and strictness on recruitment and ways of doing things.
And just the final point, and bringing in something which Ben talked about there, about one of the key barriers that a lot of people face, both neurotypical and neurodiverse, is they haven't actually ever really immersed themselves or seen a workplace. And I know, amongst other things, you do various e-learning units and various kind of videos for people to experience workplaces and things like that. Actually, at the minute, I worked with somebody who was told they couldn't work from home, and then 6 weeks later were told they had to work from home, and it worked. Well, actually, there are opportunities being created for people, but that sort of e-learning and the virtual learning environment in the future could create even more opportunities for people, not just your business.
Yeah, and we consider ourselves a learning business. That's what we do. We create learning, but also internally, we look at ways that people can learn, and we put people on personal development plans to kind of develop themselves. And there's definitely scope. And like I said, there's so much learning that needs to happen on a day-to-day basis in every single business. And the way we kind of approach it is to look at everyone's individual needs, everyone's individual skill sets, and look at what, how best to support them, and not just in their learning, but in how they are incorporated into the team. So, going back to the example of the girl we were talking about previously, she's got, say, with autism, and looking about what do we need to do to make sure that she is comfortable in the workplace. And we took those steps to sort of again invite her, when we had kind of had those initial talks, said, look, come and just see the workspace you'll be part of. And we had the conversation about what is it we can do to support you. And actually, it wasn't as much as you'd think. And it's just little adjustments you had to make, and again, little things where we need to just inform the team that, this is a little bit of a different way that someone might act. But actually, well, after we'd gone through that process, and like I said, you came and did some training for us, and on autism in the workplace, and everyone kind of came away from that thinking, that's really, really interesting to think of things from a different perspective, and think about how people sort of act. And actually, I came away thinking it's no different to anyone else. If you're looking at someone and making provisions for somebody because they've got autism, you're making the same provisions for somebody without that as well. It's the same thing. You're adjusting all the time, especially in a small organization like us. It's really important you kind of make sure that everyone's got what they need to do the best job possible, and that everyone's happy in their role. And I've realized I'm making small adjustments all the time for every single member of the team. And as a result, people are happier, people are more productive, and we're being more successful as a result.
Fantastic, Phil. So thank you very much for joining us. Phil will be back shortly when we come to the Q&A. And our final guest today, I'd like to welcome Charlotte into the studio. So Charlotte, I'll let you explain who you are and about your vast array of roles that you carry out.
I'm Charlotte Patrick. I work at the University of Northampton. I'm Key Sector and Knowledge Transfer Manager, which probably doesn't mean quite a lot, but I get involved in all sorts of projects, from matching up academics with businesses to develop innovative projects within companies, through to running industry-led forums. And currently I'm working with our business support team on a series of business seminars for companies across the county to try and support them during these strange times we find ourselves in.
And you mentioned there about that kind of broad range of roles that you've got, a huge skill set of dealing with different people. But actually, again, that link between education and employment comes to the front again of the importance of kind of ensuring that that both understand each other, and you host different forums and see businesses in different industries. Kind of what do you think is the general sort of feedback from employers as to how prepared individuals are for today's workplace?
I think it varies. I think through the events that we've been holding with companies, they're very much open to looking at new pools of employment. Prior to COVID, we were in one of the lowest unemployment levels in the UK. So organisations were struggling to find the right people for roles. So they were looking at all sorts of avenues and how they could support individuals into the workplace. I think, as you've heard from some of your other guests, companies only have to make reasonable adjustments to potentially have some very good employees. But some of the things, it's myth busting. As some of the sessions we've done with companies, it's all around the myth busting, those short adjustments you have to make, which can actually lead you to some very valuable employees and actually some really good skill sets into your business.
Yeah, and like you say, the university now plays a key role in Northamptonshire and beyond, and actually we're bringing a huge amount of talented individuals who want to come in, who are bringing a skill set into the town, and actually that's only going to benefit our local employers, surely, because when those people are coming in, not only whilst they're here but also afterwards. And I know the university is always looking at innovative ways of linking up employment and education.
Definitely. You've already heard about our Time to Grow project, which graduates can go and have placements within organisations which are part funded. We've also got a number of other projects that the university has run in the past. One was called SENL, which was looking at those with special educational needs and making links into further education and employers. And we're also partnering with consortia in Northamptonshire on a project around working progress in getting those from diverse backgrounds with disabilities into the workplace, educating employers as to what support is out there to help them access these employees.
And you've mentioned it a couple of times about that. Actually, a lot of the time employers do want to engage with different groups of people, whether it be individuals or educational establishments, but they're not always entirely sure where to look. And that's something that we found, that actually when we've gone to them and said, look, this is what we can do, this is where the support is, they've been really, really welcoming, which I think isn't always a message that gets out. Sometimes I think people assume it's not done for other reasons, but actually having that support network is absolutely huge.
It is. I mean, one of the reasons why we set up the forums was to share information with companies. The strapline of the forums is it's all around sharing information and best practice. So sharing the information about what's out there to support is a key element. And most times companies just don't know what's out there. They're going down the traditional routes of it, of, adverts on websites, etc. They don't always know how to tap into those other organisations such as yourself in the county.
And when we look at, your traditional pathway of school, post-16 or college, then university, and then into the workplace, there are now different pathways appearing. And actually, are the skill sets different depending on those different routes? Is there too much focus on qualification? Should we be focusing more on skills? What is it exactly that you think employers kind of really demand from modern day education?
It varies on the role, but the thing that we've heard coming out of employers time and time again is those softer skills. It's the enthusiasm, the commitment, the timekeeping. Many things can be taught to an individual, but those crucial bits about communicating with your colleagues, turning up for work, are really crucial. And that's something that everybody can look to be able to get a role simply by just undertaking those few small things.
And as we've mentioned, this is being filmed during a global pandemic. We're at a safe social distance, which might not even make sense to people in the future, or it could become the new norm. But actually, there's a lot of talk about what the new workplace will look like. And I know the university will play a key role in that, as will Chris, Ben, Phil, everyone involved in this conversation. Do you think that that's going to have a knock-on effect on curriculums of the future? Because actually, these skills that we keep talking about, you never get a qualification and you don't get a GCSE in resilience. But actually, does it become more important based on what we're experiencing now, or actually is this just a little bit more of a down than usual?
I think we'll have to wait for time to tell on that one, really. But I think certainly we're all learning new skill sets. One of the things that we're talking to with the employers through the online forums as they're now taking place is this what the new normal will look like. There's been a number of organisations who previously there were roles that couldn't be done from home, but we've actually proved that many of these can be. So I think there will be many opportunities, but there'll also be many adaptations as we're working through this. For instance, my colleagues within the university who are working with schools on the Inspire project, we're asking local organisations to do sound bouts about how they got into their careers. What do you like about them? So we can actually communicate with students, because the traditional careers fairs, etc., and going to do work placements at the moment aren't happening. But we really do need to engage with young people to showcase the world of opportunities that are out there. Yes, we're all working from home, we're all juggling various bits and pieces, but there will be many opportunities now and as we progress.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, Charlotte. I'm now going to kind of round up that individual Q&A, and we're shortly going to welcome everyone back. But I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of our guests who've joined us today. And as Charlotte says, whilst these are challenging times, actually, we couldn't be having necessarily these conversations during a couple of months ago when things were really busy. So hopefully it will bring a lot more opportunities to people. So thank you for joining us.
I've got this analogy with business and sport, and I think education comes into that as well. And it's about playing people in the right position. And I think if somebody is autistic, as long as they're played in the right position, they will be just as an important asset to somebody that isn't autistic. And I do think the one thing that you've done an amazing job of, Tom, over this last two and a bit years, I think I was explaining this to somebody that I introduced you to in Milton Keynes the other week. If you asked everybody in the country at the beginning of the year, have you heard of autism? I would say 98% of them would say yes. If you asked them to explain what autism is or give you a definition of it, I reckon 5% of them would struggle. And I before I met you, not before I met you, but before I understood about Track and N and what you're doing, I was one of those 5%. And I've got a better understanding now, and you've done a great job in raising that awareness. So I just wanted to add that really in terms of businesses that are watching this should 100% consider talking to you in their next recruitment drive, because I think people that are on that autism spectrum have got just as valuable role to play in the workplace than none.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, that key word there is the education, because it was an awareness piece to start with. And what we really want to move towards is that acceptance that they're individuals. And actually, when we say that, we mean it. There's a lot of talk of mental health and well-being in the workplace, which is hugely, hugely important. But actually, I think Phil made the point. It's about treating people as individuals. And like you say, finding the environment that fits. We've kind of made it our mission to not change individuals. We want to change the environment. And as we've seen recently, we can adapt to new environments, but we've not tried to coach everyone to become a new sort of person. I think that, for me, is key along that entire pathway of when you look at things. So I guess my question to you as a panel is, what do you feel schools could do better? And this isn't a criticism of education, it's a development point, to help people be more ready for the world of work in the future. So, Phil, maybe over to you first, just in terms of what do you think schools could be doing to help people be more ready to kind of come into your workplace and thrive?
Yeah, so I mean, there's quite a lot, and like I said, with educate, my wife's a teacher, and I've got a lot of respect for what teachers and schools do, and it's a really difficult job to kind of tick all the boxes that need to be ticked, and without sort of going into large scale curricular reform, there are some certain things around. Certainly, for me, one of the key things that's come to light to me and really kind of stands out over the last sort of 6 months or so is the importance of being able to learn. And what I mean by that is, when you're in school, you do all these different subjects, and if you're like me, 80% of those subjects have largely insignificance in your kind of working life. Pick up little bits and pieces, but what you do in school doesn't have a lot of significance. However, there's those bits where when you kind of come out of school, you've got to start to think about what it is you want to do, and you need to learn new skills as you go, and you can't teach everything in schools. You can't teach everything about maths and English and science. You can't teach it all. But what you can teach is teach people the ability to know how to learn themselves when they get into a position where they need to do that. So if you, for example, I'll go back to the graphic designer analogy. If you're a graphic designer and that's what you want to do, in school you could say, well, art is really important. Maths, there's not much relevance in that. But actually, what might happen is you to become a graphic designer, and you need to learn all these different skills to be a good graphic designer. New software comes out. You need to be able to learn that. You need to be able to learn how to manage people, because all of a sudden now what's happened is you've got successful. And like I did, I started as a consultant and just doing my own thing, and over time I've started to manage people and take people on. I've had to learn how to do my own accounts. I've had to learn how to to recruit and resource and to project manage, and I've had to learn that as I go. And that's not something you're ever going to learn in school. And I wouldn't expect everyone to learn in school because it's quite unique to what I do. But at the same time, if you've got those skill sets in order to know how to kind of learn yourself, then you can apply that to anything, and you can then become anything you want to be, if that makes sense. Sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded way of saying it, but that's kind of the biggest thing I think is it's not about necessarily learning those hard skills. Soft skills to me, like Charlotte said earlier, they're huge. I'd much sooner have someone that's got the ability to learn, that's got the enthusiasm, the motivation, than somebody that comes in by saying, I can do everything and I've got all the skills, but that's it. That's all you're going to get from me. So yeah, I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, and Chris, obviously you work with a variety of different industries. That is there a message that to schools that you think that could help to make people perhaps more ready for this kind of workforce of the future?
I think the guys have hit the nail on the head. I think typically, and I think it's been well publicised, that these days, certainly in secondary schools, they're being taught to pass exams and to hit that level that the school need them to be at for whatever grading system that the schools get marked on. But I think Charlotte and Phil have both touched on the softer skills. You can teach any subject. I didn't leave school wanting to be a recruiter. I left school wanting to be a policeman. And I won't go into any detail why that didn't happen, but I fell into recruitment, and it was a job that gave me a foundation that I can build on, I had a set time I needed to be at work. I had a set time I finished, and then it was all about building up that relationship building skills. I think these days, because of technology, some of the younger generation are missing out on compared to when we were at school, because technology gives them instant response, instant gratification. They need to be able to understand that coming into a workplace, you need to kind of build your way up, and from that, that's got to be coming from, like Phil touched on, the ability to learn and grow and take time to understand and earn your stripes. And I think what we have identified is a lot of businesses out there, especially, I know it's been mentioned, with apprenticeship routes and various other approaches to education in the workplace are available, that it's not a rush. You're going to be working for 50 years. Don't rush to be climbing the ladder. Take your time, learn, embrace it, enjoy the change. But the softer skills for work ethic, turning up on time, all of those things, absolutely massive.
And I think, Charlotte, that's something you touched on in our kind of one-to-one, that those sorts of skills, and I guess the key message is that businesses, universities, they do want to help schools to help students develop those skills.
Definitely. Businesses are very keen to go and talk to students at school about the range of careers. Because I think that's often the problem is when you're at school, you don't necessarily know what careers are out there or what you could do. I mean, certainly I wanted to be a scientist. I went to university, I did a biology degree. What I do now is so far removed from being a scientist, but it's built on all of those skill sets. but you don't always know what the opportunities are out there. So I think companies showcasing the wide range of roles, certainly that's the role of universities as well, is to bring companies in as well, but showcasing to students that you can be adaptable. As Chris has just said, what he wanted to be isn't where he is now, but making sure that students are adaptable. And you might not have become a police officer, I might not have been a scientist, but that doesn't mean that I'm a failure. I've actually developed something else that's better. It's being adaptable and making sure that you are happy, you're progressing, and you're always looking at new things.
And I guess, Ben, that's what you're trying to bring together with the Schools Business Alliance, of actually giving people the opportunity, because there's people willing both sides to learn, but actually bringing them together into the same environment is a key role that you can play.
Yeah, I think if we look back to when I was at school, which wasn't that long ago, 20 years, back then, work experience, I was shocked to learn that work experience doesn't really happen now. Whereas back then, you used to put down your top three categories of where to go. And Mr. Petty or Mr. Dabbs, for anybody watching this that went to Wren or went to school in Wellingborough, I mean, those two gents, they'd click you around the ear hole if my tie wasn't done it properly. Whereas, they'd probably be struck off now for that. But they were fantastic teachers because they gave us a good grounding, and they did understand how to get the best out of each pupil. But say, for example, I remember 2 out of the 3 that I put down, they'd changed their mind and they didn't want to accept anybody. So they just got out their address book and rang business owners that they knew of, if you like, within the community. Teachers are a different breed now to what they were. And my mum was a school teacher for 25 years, so I know I've seen first with my own eyes exactly how underrated, and I'm going to say underpaid and overworked teachers are. I know that they do an amazing job 52 weeks of the year in preparation and outside of school hours, and what they go above and beyond certainly for the disadvantaged pupils. But so I think that the Mr. Petty and the Mr. Dabbs, they are no more. And this isn't a criticism of an existing crop of teachers, but they don't have the address book necessarily for the local business community. They can't go and ring up people that they know that are in their own businesses to maybe help them out with work experience. Work experience is probably not a valid example now, obviously, because they don't do it. But I was actually shocked that they don't do it like they used to, because that's that was something that we always used to look forward to as we approach year 11. And the one thing that I would say that's come out of the NSBA, we get a lot of careers-led professionals that come there on behalf of the school, business managers, etc., along with deputy heads and headmasters and principals. But I'm amazed at how many of them still say that there are teachers and, in some cases, very senior people within schools that don't really care about careers as much. It's not their number one priority. Coming back to what Chris said around just getting them through the exams. And I was really shocked at that. And there are some good examples actually of that happening nationally, not as just a local issue or challenge. So for anybody in education that's watching this, I would really encourage that ethos internally to really find that passion for careers, because little Johnny and little Daphne today could be a managing director in 5 years' time that are going to go on and employ 6, 7, 8, 9 people locally, might go on and design something that's innovative and creative that changes industry or changes the world. Who knows? But careers has got to be, in my opinion, it's got to be taken more seriously across the whole of the education sector on a national basis.
Yeah, and I think on that note, I'm conscious of time and everyone's incredibly busy, but what a note to finish it on, that careers has got to be at the key and at the heart of it, and that's businesses and education working together. So I'd just like to, whilst we're finishing up recording, say a huge thank you to everyone for joining in today. So a big thank you for joining in the conversation, and we'll be back with a second episode very, very shortly. So thank you very much.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers, Tom.